So what makes a good final girl? Probably knowing where the weapons are. You don't even really have to know how to use them half the time. It's really just knowing where they are or what you can use as a weapon. Once you've got that down, you're probably gonna be okay and make it through the rest of the movie. I don't know. These people just don't pay attention to where weapons are or what they can use as weapons. I don't know. That's why they die. By the way, hang around at the end of the movie for a brief little jaunt into the idea of the final girl. Just like me rambling about some thoughts about it if you're interested, because I am. Welcome back to 31 Days of Halloween. We are in the home stretch here, basically. I think I'm down to 10 movies, 11 movies. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and count again. But today we are going to be talking about a movie called Final Girls. And it is I'll just say what Sam Raimi said about it. It is supposed to be a love story to 80s slasher horror movies. So our plot is basically this girl played by Tasia Farmiga is with her mother, who was a famous actress or is a famous actress from this Bloodbath movie series, which was a slasher horror. And quite predictably, which I think this movie is meant to do, it's meant to be predictable and tropey and all that, her mother dies in a random car accident, and now Tasia's character is dealing with that loss and friends and being a teenager, basically, which is what all the 80s slashers movies were about until the murdering started. So she basically gets convinced to go to a screening of her mother's two movies, the Bloodbath 1 and Bloodbath 2. And during the movie, a fire breaks out, and then somehow, by cutting through the movie screen, her and her four friends, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? 4 or 5 friends, wind up in the movie of Bloodbath. And basically they're like, well, I guess we have to figure out some way to get out of this. So the movie, like I said, plays on a lot of tropes and, the stuff, the ideas that came from 80s slasher horror movies. They actually get a little meta with it, kind of like Scream, where Scream is like, oh, you have these specific rules, and if you follow these rules, that means that you get to live. Through the movie, you don't die, and they play that a lot in this. I think they say repeatedly, you can't have sex because if you have sex, then you're gonna die, or if you take off your clothes, then Billy, who is the murdering character in this movie's version of Jason or Freddy or Michael Myers, Billy's gonna come and kill you. So they play on that, and then you have your very tropey characters. You have the really hot guy. You have the innocent virgin who's really into the hot guy, and for whatever reason he's into her. And then you have the kind of sexy girl, and then you have the really nerdy guy. Then you kind of have the nerdy girl who's not a virgin, but everybody thought she was. And you have that whole group of kids, and then you also have this other group of kids that are in the movie, or in this movie that the other kids have gotten transported into. And so you have that part you have that group in this movie as well. So you have two different groups of kids, and they both fulfill the 80s tropes. It also kind of follows the 80s tropes, where if you discount Tasia's mother dying in the beginning, the first person to die in the movie is a black guy, which is a very, very prominent trope from the 80s, and it's still something that's kind of made fun of today. There was a recent movie that I watched. Lenny Kravitz's son was in it. I forget what it was. A remake of something where they're trying to bring people back from the dead or something, and even there, Lenny Kravitz's son was like, "Oh no, I know what happens in these sorts of things. The black guy always gets it first." So it's a really prominent slasher trope that continues even now, even when like the black guy isn't the first one to bite it. And you have like all the other tropes that come along with slasher movies. So this movie was, I really wanted to like this movie. I enjoy movies that take a different look at things, or like they kind of try and make fun of it and do something different with it. And I was disappointed in this movie because I feel like with maybe just a couple of tweaks, it could have been so much better. I mean, you have some great characters. You have Adam Devine, who is hilarious. Um, you have a really I won't say really unique, because the idea of being transported into a movie or a video game or something like isn't necessarily that unique, but it's unique in the way that it was done here. So you have this sort of unique storyline. You have a good cast of characters, and it just didn't quite land. And I sat through a lot of the movie trying to figure out if it wasn't landing because it was too self-aware, or if it was trying too hard to pay homage to 80s movies, or if it wasn't landing because they just couldn't manage to get it to stick. Like it's got a good bit of lead in, like that part's fine, and the characters kind of figure out what's going on is fine. And then everything just happens really fast for a period of time, and then it slows back down, and then it all happens really fast again up till the end. It's a little weird. The pacing was a little bit off, and I wasn't quite sure why they made some of these decisions, because then I just kept expecting certain characters to pop back up, because they did that a couple of times, and then those characters never popped back up again. It was a little weird. It wasn't as funny as I thought it was going to be. Again, because it's listed as like, it's supposed to be kind of like, not, I don't want to say a satire, but like a tongue-in-cheek sort of horror movie where it is making fun of itself and it's making fun of other horror movies. And then you did have a couple really funny characters that were supposed to be in there. And the jokes just weren't all there. There were a couple really good ones, and then the other ones were just kind of like, all right, like, haha, this is really overplayed, and it's not even, like, funny in the idea that they're trying to make it overplayed. It was almost like they meant this part of it to be, like, a serious joke, not, like, a joke where they're trying to make fun of something else, if that makes sense. Basically what I'm just trying to say is that it was not as funny, or it wasn't as funny as I anticipated it being. So that was kind of a letdown. The acting overall was really good. It was fun to watch them act, especially when they're like freaking out about what's going on, and the Billy the murderer, and there are a bunch of bright spots in the movie. There just weren't quite enough to make me like really, really like it. So as far as ratings go, I gave this movie a 5. Because it didn't quite land with me. IMDb gives it a 6.6. Critics on Rotten Tomatoes give it a 70, and then general viewership is more in line with the IMDb rating. They give it something like 66, 65, something like that. So my rating is a little on the lower end of the scale, and maybe it's just because I expected a little bit more out of it. Maybe I don't know. I mean, I don't think 5 is that low of a score. On a different day, maybe I would rate it as high as a 6, which would be more in line with the other ratings. I'm actually kind of surprised that the critics liked it so much. Maybe because it I don't know. Usually they don't like things that are very tropey and stuff like that. Maybe it was just the cast of characters that was in there that they really liked. Who knows? I tend to not really agree with the critics anyway. But yeah, it sort of hit for me, but not really. I would recommend seeing it just to say that you did. I mean, it was, like I said, it was funny at times. It's not scary. The kills are mostly okay. kind of like run-of-the-mill slasher kills. There wasn't really anything special or spectacular about it. But again, I think that's because this movie's just trying to pay homage to the older 80s movies. So they're not trying to reinvent the wheel. I guess they're just trying to be like, hey, we enjoyed this specific wheel, so we're going to put it on a new vehicle and drive it around and see what happens with it. So I think the wheel might have been a little flat that they took. But maybe you'll get more out of it than I did. Maybe the jokes will land better for you. Or maybe you just really have that nostalgic feel for 80s slashers movies. I mean, I've seen most of them. They're not my favorite movies. I like current slashers a lot better. I mean, I obviously can appreciate where they're coming from and why these other ones are viewed as such classics. But they're just movies to me. They're not cult status. Like, I would much rather watch John Carpenter's The Thing 80 times as opposed to his Halloween. I understand why it's a great movie. I do enjoy watching it, but it's not something that, like, if I had a choice of movies to watch, or if I had if I was going to be stranded on a desert island, that's not one of the movies I would bring. So I'm going to talk about the ending of this movie in a little bit, so we will be getting into spoilers. So if you haven't seen this movie and you do want to go watch it, now's your time to slip out the door, escape the murderer. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing, and sticking with me through all of these movies on this 31-day journey. I hope you guys have enjoyed it so far. We are almost done, and I will see you guys who are leaving in the next video, because we are getting into spoilers. I gotta make sure I don't knock anything down. There's so much stuff on this table. So, the way this movie ends, I kind of enjoyed the way it ended, because they were trying to figure out who the final girl is going to be. And again, here we're playing into the trope. She's got to be a virgin. She's got to be a good girl, this and that. So we go back and forth with Max, who's Tasia Farmiga's character, and then her mother. I think her name's Amanda. Amanda Cartwright. So you go back and forth with them, and then eventually Amanda's Amanda finds out that Max is her daughter, and it's all very touching, and it's nice. And then Amanda basically sacrifices herself so that Max can be the final character, the final girl. So the fight scene between Max and Billy was really cool. Obviously overplayed. Max has all these special skills all of a sudden that she couldn't possibly have had. She's flipping and doing kip-ups and all this other stuff. And I mean, obviously she can't do it, or she wouldn't be able to do it in real life, but it's a movie, and she's the final girl. So she basically just gets to do whatever she wants to do. It doesn't matter if she didn't have those skills before. That is just the magic of the final girl. So I really enjoyed their last fight scene. I enjoyed the sort of reunion between her and her mother. It provided that catharsis that I guess she was looking for throughout the movie, because her mother was kind of snatched so violently and suddenly away from her. And one of the other neat parts of this ending, and there's actually 3 different endings. There's the one that seems to have made it into the movie. There's the director's cut, and then there's the original ending. So the first one that I watched, I think, was probably the best one, where the characters all wake up in a hospital, they think they've escaped, this and that, and then all of a sudden they hear the sound sting, or whatever they call it, the cha-cha-cha, as Billy is like coming in to make his move, and they're like, wait, we thought we were out. And they get out of they leave their hospital room, and they see like a tab and a Rubik's Cube and a doctor making inappropriate advances towards his nurse, saying, oh yeah, let me check out those rounds on you, honey. And then they're like, oh no, we're still in the movie. And the one character, Duncan, who was kind of like their guide through this, it's like, oh my god, I'm so excited because Bloodbath 2 was even better than Bloodbath 1. And then Billy jumps through like a plate glass window or doors or something. And it's just so dramatic. It's so reminiscent of like Halloween. And I really enjoyed that ending and how they tied it in with like the sequel and this and that. It was better than the other two endings, I thought. So one ending is where they come out and Adam Devine's character is there. They come out of their hospital room because they hear the cha cha cha. And Adam Devine's character is there being inappropriate with a nurse, and they're like, why is he here? Like, we're supposed to be out of this movie. And then Duncan's character again realizes that they're in the sequel, and he goes, that's right, they loved him so much in the first one that they recast him again in the sequel. And then Billy again jumps out through the window, and Adam Devine's character does this lovely scream. Like, if you can give any guy like the title of Scream Queen, you could give it to Adam Devine. He's got a wonderful scream. And then the third one was just Max's character and the hot love interest. I think his name might have been Chris. I forget what his name was. He's played by Alexander Ludwig, who is also in the Hunger Games movies. So they're kind of wandering around the hospital like, oh my gosh, where are we? Did we make it out? And it's just the two of them, and then it goes into the scene with the doctor being inappropriate with the nurse, and you hear the noise, and then Billy comes out of the glass again. So I think the best ending was the one that I originally saw. The other ones were okay, but I'm glad that they went with the one that they did. And that's pretty much it with this movie as far as like endings and spoilers to talk about. It was a funny movie overall, so I mean I recommend seeing it based on that. So if you're gonna go watch it, I hope you enjoy it. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, and I will see you guys in the next video. So I love the idea of a final girl and like having a final girl because it's almost like, you know, typically in action movies and sci-fi and fantasy, it's usually the man who gets to be like, I'll save you, I'm going to save everybody, I'm doing the best thing there ever was. But in horror movies, it's typically a woman character, whether it's a young girl or a teenager or an adult woman, who gets to be the hero and be the final girl and take out the bad guy. And she doesn't always get a happy ending, but she is the one who wins. Whether it's Ripley killing the alien queen or shooting the alien into space in the first one, or in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the girl, she doesn't kill the chainsaw guy, but like she stabs him and she's the only one who survives, and like that's not really a happy ending, but she's the only one who makes it out. And the idea of the final girl, like it's such a fascinating idea. Like, where does this come from? Why is it the girl who always lives at the end, or who triumphs, or who is the one who takes out the bad guy? And that's always been my argument against people when they say that horror is misogynistic or it hates women. And I do understand that there are some things that could lend credence to it, but at the same time, whenever you go into a horror movie, you're looking for that girl or that woman to be the hero. You're expecting it because that is just a trope that horror has, and that's one of their better tropes. And I think it gives a lot of power to women, whereas typically we are not allowed to have that power. Like, we're usually secondary characters in action, fantasy, and sci-fi movies, or even books or video games. So as much as people want to say that horror is misogynistic, I don't necessarily think that it is. And part of that is because we have this final girl trope, and it's probably my favorite trope out of any of them. You know, if I was ever stuck in a horror movie, I would hope that I would be the final girl and not the one like tripping over my sandals in the middle of the woods and getting impaled from behind with a spear or an axe or something. What is that? It's making her cry. There's thumping going on. I don't know what it is. Sounds like people are running around. Hopefully this isn't another like weird thing where what happened when I did the poltergeist video and the door slammed.